Said earlier, I've been really looking forward to this one because I really enjoy our chats that we have in the car back and forth, and feel like I only know you like a little bit and you've got all this knowledge and experience from places, and I just love to kind of hear your stories about stuff, and maybe you've got some juicy stories about guys at the gym like Lewis was saying, don't tell any sorts of stories about it. So it's like, yes, there's going to be some good stories, but usually I just start these like I say with talking about how we kind of first met, and I think that was back at Gracie Barra Leeds. Very briefly, I was training for about a month just before I went away, and I think you must have made a really good impression because when I came back and I saw you at Gracie Barra Harrogate, I was like, oh, that's Khalil, I know who that is. And so I remembered you without having to much think about that short period of time over the 2 years that had passed. Going back to then, do you remember that time, like training?
Yeah, so I remember you coming to GB Leeds with Mike, and I remember you were, I think at that time, looking to go into the Marines, and that was your sort of plan at that time. And I don't, obviously Mike was obviously an ex-Marine, so I was like, I was quite impressed with, although you appeared quite young, you had like an idea of where you were going, which is quite rare in young people. Normally they're just kicking around, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I might try this, I might try that, but you were quite focused. So you made that impression on me. But at that time, jiu-jitsu, so I had taken some time off jiu-jitsu, and I'd come back. So I was kind of like ultra keen to like make up for lost time. So yeah, GB Leeds was a great place to train. Still is a great place to train.
Yeah.
Made some of my closest friends there and stuff. So yeah, I miss it a little bit. I miss GB Leeds, but it was good. But no, moving on to bigger and better things, I suppose, in Harrogate. Yeah, it's good.
I had a quick look through your Facebook page earlier today, just to see if I could get any insights, and a lot of it is, Gracie Barra, that kind of stuff. Is it quite? How important is it for you about jiu-jitsu and this kind of Gracie Barra as a closer group?
Yeah, I mean, my Facebook page is probably a little bit misleading because I'm quite a private person,
right?
So I don't really use social media the way a lot of other people use social media, as in to advertise their life. So
yeah,
my life is based around my family, work, and jiu-jitsu, and that's pretty much all I do.
Right.
And I've got my hands full with that. I've just about got enough time. So as you know, I've got a wife and 3 kids, and then I've got a full-time job. I'm a police officer, and then trying to fit jiu-jitsu into that is difficult, but there's not really much time for anything else. And I'll be honest, I don't really want I don't really want to do anything else, because all my spare time I'm doing jiu-jitsu, because I struggle with it, struggle to fit it in with the shifts and the kids and what have you and everything else. So I mean, jiu-jitsu is my main hobby. It's I say hobby because I can only do it as a hobby. I see people on like social media and young guys, and they're training full time, and I'm a bit envious of that, because I'd quite like to do that. I suppose I'm a little bit envious of Lewis, where he is making steps to make jiu-jitsu more part of his work rather than just his hobby. But that's not me. That's not where I'm at. So as much as I'm a little bit envious of those people, I won't really swap where I'm at for them. I've built my life, I suppose, to where I want to be, and we always think the grass is greener. There's always that idea that if I was doing this, but you don't know what impact that would have on your life. So jiu-jitsu is important. Gracie Barra as a family, I love the idea of the club. So when I first started jiu-jitsu, I trained at a few different places, and a lot of them were full of knobheads, to be frank. There were, I still find the MMA culture I don't particularly like. It's a tough guy culture.
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm going to smash you and everybody else. Gracie Barra isn't that. You know, the principle behind Gracie Barra is jiu-jitsu for everyone. That means the 50-year-old woman, the kid, someone like me who's doing it part-time, full-time athlete. It's for everyone.
Yeah.
And you've got to treat it as if you've got to treat every individual according to their circumstances. So there's guys I've trained with before, no matter who they were training with, would go 100% and just destroy them. That's not the ethos of a Gracie Barra club, and that's not what I'm looking for and what I want to see on the mat. So it's important that you find the right club, and for me, Gracie Barra and the ideas, the principles behind Gracie Barra are what I look for in jiu-jitsu. So it is important. And the whole family mentality of it, you know, you can go wherever. I've trained in different Gracie Barra clubs around the country, and you go abroad and when you go on holiday and you find some jiu-jitsu, as soon as you say you train at Gracie Barra, there's an instant respect there because they know what you represent, so it's good.
Right, yeah, that sounds great. I think I was speaking to Jim this morning, and he's Mike's friend Jim.
Yeah.
And he's just got back from Marseille, and he's spent a couple of weeks out there and just doing some language classes and training out in GB Marseille. It was like 3 minutes from his Airbnb where he was staying, so he was just getting down all the time. And he was saying the same thing, where he felt just really included straight away, and even with the language barrier there, he had something in common with a lot of people, and he found like instant connections where he was just kind of he walked into somewhere that he'd never been before and had friends pretty much straight away.
Jiu-jitsu is a language in itself. You don't need to speak to anyone, so a person will. I think you can learn a lot from someone in the way they roll, and the way when they find themselves in a difficult position, how they react to that. So a lot of people will, they'll start all jiu-jitsu matches, game fights, whatever, start the same way. You'll tap hands, you'll fist bump, and it'll all start off nice and relaxed until the first grip. I always say it's 50% until the first grip, because as soon as you sink that first grip, that person instantly realizes, you can instantly tell where that's going, because if they sink 100% grip and you when you try and break it, that person is fighting, then you know how that roll's going to go. But if they're just relaxed and what have you, so it's rolling with someone. You get to know quite a lot about them. You learn about a person's personality, because people can lose their temper while rolling quite easily. If it starts getting rough, and you'll see as the tempo starts building, and it becomes less of a match and more of a fight, then it tells about a person, how they control their emotions, how they control their aggression, how they are afterwards, whether they're sulking or whether they're learn from it, and afterwards some people get up in a huff and walk away when it hasn't gone their way, and some people they're just like, they'll give you an embrace and say, oh, how did you do that? And it teaches you about people. You don't need to speak to anybody. Yeah.
Do you think it eventually kind of thins out those people, or do you think it does?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's if you've got an ego in jiu-jitsu, you'll get found out quite quickly, because as you go through the food chain, as you go up through the belts, you're going to come across people who are going to whoop you over and over again. And if you can't handle that, you'll avoid those people. But that's to your detriment, because your game will suffer because of that. So, I was listening to a video of the Mr. Jiu-Jitsu guy on Facebook.
Okay.
Guy from the States, and he was saying, find the toughest guy in the gym and go up against them. Don't avoid anybody. Go up against the toughest guys and get your ass kicked, because that's how you'll improve.
Yeah.
But if you can't do that, if you can't go and get your ass kicked on a daily basis, if your ego won't allow you to do that, then your game will suffer because of that. That's how you will find yourself. You will identify your weaknesses in your game, plug those holes, and get better.
Yeah. I think there's something definitely to be said when you kind of know as you're going into a role, and there's that someone that's not like Lewis or Jeff or Mike, who they're obviously a lot better than you, and they're gonna work you, but they're not gonna destroy you. But if you're going against someone who's just that bit better than you, let's say like some like the new blue belts and that kind of thing, it's gonna be a really tough role, because you're both gonna be trying quite hard, and they're gonna get the better of you eventually, for the most part. And those are some of the toughest roles I find.
Yeah, because that's someone you're chasing. Yeah,
and you kind of know just before you're going into it, like. You tap hand, you're like, this isn't going to go well for me. But I think there's definitely something to be said for that feeling, and still, looking for it and still searching out.
I remember when Lewis first started rolling, and I think maybe we were both blue belts or we were both white belts. I can't remember. And we were at the gym at GB Leeds, sort of 5 versions back from where it is now.
Okay.
Because GB Leeds, in my time at Leeds, it probably moved 6 or 7 times location.
Right. I didn't realise.
So probably from where it was so when you came, we were on the 2nd floor in the block.
Yeah.
Well, before that, we were up on the 3rd floor.
All right.
Before that, we were on the ground floor. When you came into the car park directly opposite you, we were there. That there was the best gym, because they had a massive mat space. You had a weights area, you had an office, it were a really nice space, but ended up moving upstairs, which I don't think was a good move. I think everything's clear in hindsight, isn't it? But that certainly wasn't a good move. But I remember back in that ground floor, rolling against Lewis, and I used to have that feeling, because Lewis was a tough roll.
Yeah.
And I think I might have actually been, I was ahead of him, as in I had been at the gym for longer. So there was a bit of a pressure on me that, this guy's new. What I know now is Lewis had been training at that point for years, just somewhere else.
Right. Okay.
And he'd been training Nogi, and he'd been doing MMA, and he'd been doing lots of stuff. So he'd been training for a long time. But when someone turns up at the gym and they start as a white belt, you think, well, they're new. So in the other side of that if you're expected to be ahead of someone and that other person is good, it's daunting for them as well. Because there's that pride element of it. I should be beating you. I'm a higher grade than you. I've been training longer than you.
Right.
I should be beating you.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Kind
of expectations that you set on yourself.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
I think that's why it's quite enjoyable almost as a white belt, where there's no expectations on yourself, or no one has any on you. Whereas like you can just enjoy it, and if you lose, you lose, and you're probably gonna lose. But I guess if like you get into the higher belts, and then people like a lower belt, you're worried that it'll look bad for you, or maybe look bad for someone else. Or...
Yeah, but it shouldn't be that case. So. The idea really should be that when you're a lower belt, so for me now, if I'm going up against a white belt, I should be thinking, right, I should have a plan in mind that in this role I want to do this, and then it's a case of flowing with that to get to that position. It should be about movement. It should be about control. There shouldn't be any. It should be without any aggression, because you shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
You should be at a position where through just through the movement of your body, you should be able to, and implementing the drills and shrimping and bridging and rolling and all of that stuff and moving around that person through grip control. You should be able to do that. But it doesn't work like that.
Right, yeah.
It doesn't work like that because someone will do something and you'll be like, damn, and you'll get swept. And you're like, that wasn't part of the plan. And then like before you know it, you're mounted and you're like, this isn't part of the plan. But it's fine because what that's shown is that what you were trying to do, you didn't do well enough.
Right. I get you.
You just need to go back to look at what you did wrong. It's like with anyone, but when you're rolling against when I roll against Lewis and Mike, I have no time to think. Everything is instinctive. When you're rolling against lower belts, it's the opposite way around. Everything is in slightly slow motion. So you move and they're reacting to you. So you have the time to figure out and think what you're going to do. It gives you that extra second to do that. And that's the difference. So it shouldn't be a mad rush, which it is against higher belts. Sometimes you're just panicking and you're chasing, you're trying to survive and you're moving and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
All you're doing is you're on pure instinct. But against lower belts, it's the opposite. When there's an you have that speed advantage, you have that thought advantage. You know, you've been in that position so many times. You know what their one or two routes out of there should be, and you've got that plan. So it's just, shutting things down and moving around them. So, but it doesn't always go to plan. But that's the idea, I suppose. That's what my idea is when I roll against lower belt guys.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, it's good to hear it as well. Sometimes you just think that when you get someone that's better than you, if you get any kind of good position, they've definitely let you had it. But I guess a lot of time they will.
Yeah.
They let you get better positions so they can work where they might be weaker.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so much fun, isn't it? As well. I'm loving it. But just to touch back before when you said you'd started out and you went to a few MMA gyms.
Yeah.
What made you kind of initially decide that you'd like to get involved, or?
Watching early UFC. So
okay.
I first started training jiu-jitsu in 2007. So that's 11 years ago. It was probably mid 2007. I watched some of the early. I was watching at that point. It was probably Matt Hughes cleaning up, likes of Randy Couture. BJ Penn was just coming back on the scene. He had left the UFC. He was coming back. So he'd been training in Japan, and then I started watching the Pride stuff and watching Vanderlei over there, and then watching Chuck Liddell over here. And I was like, I always loved boxing. I always loved combat sports, but watching the wrestling and watching the jiu-jitsu aspect of it just enthralled me. So I just thought, right, I started searching jiu-jitsu in Leeds and came up with Gracie Barra. And at the time, the strange thing now is when I first walked on the mat, there were two instructors, Tom Harris and Darren Good, and both Tom and Darren were purple belts. I now am a higher rank than both of those guys were at that time, and I think to myself, I thought they knew everything, but you realise they just, you never know anything. You just realise how little you know in jiu-jitsu as it evolves. But it was kind of like, I aimed at that. I was like, yeah, that's where I want to be, and I'm there, and I'm past that now, and I still think, well, I know nothing. So it's kind of, I sometimes sit and think, you have aims and you think that's where you're going to be because those guys know something, but then when you're there, you realise you don't really know anything.
How strange does it seem to think that, you're a higher level than them now, and they were like running schools and stuff. Does that seem really strange to you?
No. I suppose that's the, again, that goes back to those, we make decisions and we go by those decisions. I suppose I was already in the police when I started doing jiu-jitsu. And that was a career that I suppose I went down, I wanted to do. And I had a young family at that time, so I suppose the option really wasn't ever for me to go down that route of a full-time academy and teach and do it. Do it like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I look at guys, you know, that I started out with that are running their own academies now. Liam Cam down at Scramble Academy. You know, I was a white belt with Liam, trained with him for a long time. He's running his own thing. And, you know, I look at Lewis, running his own academy. Yeah. So there's guys that have gone down that route, but that's just not for me. But all good on them. That's what I say. Absolutely good on them. Absolutely.
I think Tom was saying, we had the blue belt ceremony for a few guys the last weekend or the weekend before. And Tom was saying when he started out, 16 odd years ago, whatever it was, he pointed out that we've quite lucky in that we've got 4 black belts on the mat semi-regularly, really. Pretty much always 2. Then there's Mike usually with 3, and then when Tom's down 4. Yeah. And he was saying when he started there was 2 black belts in the whole country.
That's right.
And when people like Luke and stuff were training to get their blue belt, they've come down 5 times a week for year and a half, 2 years, and he had to wait 3.5, 4 years before he got his blue belt of training. Training 5 times a week, just because he didn't have access to that next level a lot of the time. But yeah, so I think, and when other people come train from other clubs, they're like, oh man, you guys are so lucky to have so many high level people on the mat. Even though it's a new school and we've got loads of white belts, which is great in turn as well for learning when you're starting out. Yeah. It's just saying how lucky we are having that kind of level at the club, which is great.
Absolutely.
Do you kind of feel the same? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I started off with two purple belts, and you looked at sort of the black belts now. So I look at within 10 miles of my house, it's probably 10, 15 jiu-jitsu black belts. If you take into account guys at Combat Base, the guys in Bradford at Fool and Kazan, and then the Scramble and GB, Jiu-Jitsu, and there's so many. I remember I've got a friend of mine, Dave Hurst. Dave was an excellent MMA fighter, and I remember chatting to him years ago. And when he started training MMA, he used to travel out past Halifax into the sort of border of Yorkshire and Lancashire to train. Right. It was like a 30-mile trip each way.
Yeah.
And they used to do that multiple days a week. And now you've got 4 black belts round the corner from your house.
Yeah.
And it's a great time. It's a great time to learn jiu-jitsu. The bubble is it's going up, isn't it? It's expanding, and it's the lifestyle around it. It's not, jiu-jitsu isn't just about turning up training twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever, and then walking away. You build a circle of friends around that. You get involved. You compete. Through competition, you gain a further circle of friends. You start networking. You go to other clubs, you train. So there's kind of a bit of a lifestyle develops around that, around where you want to be. It becomes a central part of your pastime, or becomes your focus of your life.
With that, is there any kind of outside of the, like you're saying, outside of the individual moves and skill sets of jiu-jitsu, is there anything like values or insights you've gained that have shaped the rest of your life?
Yeah. I think you learn a lot about yourself on the mat because of, like say that the difference between jiu-jitsu and many other forms of martial arts is that live training at the end. That 80, 90 and up to 100% full on, I'm going to put you, I'm going to beat you. And you've got someone going against you. And that teaches you a lot about yourself, a lot about your will, a lot about your commitment, about your resolve, about your ability to control your own anger and your own frustrations. And that then focuses, that then filters into the rest of your life. It gives you a more relaxed sort of, I find a kind of more relaxed view, because you don't need to prove yourself to anybody. You know, there's guys out there constantly looking to prove themselves, you know, looking to fight people and looking to, you know, I don't know, there must be something in their own mind that makes them want to prove themselves. Well, you don't need that. You do that on the mat and you do it in a controlled manner. And when you go away, I find you're more relaxed. You're more relaxed in confrontation. You can control your emotions because that's a heated situation. That's a pressure situation. And yeah, it's a controlled environment. The mat is a highly controlled environment. There's a set of rules, and you know, you don't have that outside. But I certainly think it's like
an inoculation almost. Yeah, like you're getting a dose.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. So, in your young life, have you always lived in Leeds? Was that?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Chapeltown area. I mean, I'm quite. So I'm one of 10 children.
Oh right. Oh.
Yeah. I'm one of 10, and we were, you know, we were quite poor as we grew up. Certainly weren't. We didn't have any luxuries in life. You're not gonna with. I mean, there's a massive spread. So the eldest to the youngest is something like 25 years.
All right.
Something maybe something like that. So there's a massive spread. So we never all lived together. And you know, I've never lived with my eldest brother. And then. I've never really lived with my second oldest brother as well. So they had kind of moved out. They were a little bit older and they moved out. I don't remember living with them. May have done. But then there's quite a few of us that are close. There's 8 boys and 2 girls.
Oh, so well, that must be struggle for them.
It's a massive swing. My mum was like the envy of the like Asian community, because like if you have boys, you're like, it's good. So,
right.
So she was like, you know, she was like, yeah, the queen.
Showing you all off.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I've always lived in Leeds, and we lived in quite a rough area of Leeds. So, growing up around Chapeltown, it was tough back in sort of the 80s. It was quite a violent place. Even now, when you talk about Chapeltown in the policing sense, you talk about Chapeltown in the 1980s. People were like, it was almost like, it wasn't a no-go area, but you know, it was policed in a very robust manner because it had some significant social problems, mainly around drug dealing. It was a drug dealing centre of the entire city. In fact, entire surrounding cities as well.
Right.
All the like drug addicts would come in to that area to buy their drugs.
Right.
So because of that, there was a lot of violence based around that.
And were you quite aware of this as you were growing up? Was it quite something very conscious to you?
I wasn't aware that it was the drug dealing sort of capital of Yorkshire at that time, but you were certainly aware that you would see them. You would see the drug addicts, what we used to just call them crackheads. And the thing that what used to identify people on Class A crack and heroin is the speed at which they operate. So they never have enough time in the day to do anything, because they've got to get up in the morning, go out, commit some crime or something, get some money, score, go out, commit some more crime, get some more money, score, go out, commit some more crime. So they're the busiest people in the world.
Right.
And they walk at about twice the pace of everyone else. So when you see 2 people walking, and they're in normally like 2s and 3s, and you see a little group of them walking at 100 miles an hour, you know, they're They're here for one reason only. And they've got like maybe a short time window. Their dealer's going to be in that spot at that time. And that's where they got to go and get their fix. So if they ain't there, they're going to miss out.
Did these kind of things seem normal to you as you were growing up?
Yeah.
No, just kind of the way it worked.
And because I didn't know any different. I didn't know there was a different way of life.
Right.
I'm sure there was. We used to see like the rich and famous, or whatever, you know, American Dallas and Dynasty or whatever. But you don't know what middle class suburbia, I suppose, or you know, life in a village was, because you know,
it was alien.
Yeah, it wasn't something that was ever on your radar. So you deal with the reality of what you're in, don't you? And that was it. So
did you ever encounter much trouble yourself?
Yeah,
in those early years.
Yeah, I got into a few fights. I was robbed a couple of times.
Just mugged on the street, was it?
Yeah, so I remember once walking along Spencer Place, and I must have been about 12. I probably wasn't much older than my eldest son. My three kids. I've got a daughter Ruqayya, and then my son Haroon, and my youngest lad Zachariah. And Haroon's 10, and I was probably a little bit older than him, but not much.
Yeah,
probably about 10, 12. And I remember these two guys approaching me, and they were massive. They must have been, I would say, probably 16 to 18. And you got to think at that age and like growing and stuff, they
big
like
difference.
just dwarfed me. And there was two guys. They walked up to me and they were like, "Oh, what have you got?" So they like searched my pockets and stuff like that. And then I didn't have anything on me. So then I walked away, and then they called me back. And they came back after me, and they were like, "Let me see your watch." And I remember having just this crappy watch, and it was covered in like Tipex, or I can't remember what it was on it, but it was a naff watch to begin with, and it was messed up. And he went, "Give me," and he took my watch off me, and I thought, that's the worst. That's the worst. This must be the worst robbery in like the history of robberies. And then as they were walking away, the biggest guy just turned around and he like side kicked me in the chest into a tree, just sent me like just boom in the kind of straight in the like solar plexus, and I smashed into this tree that was behind me. And they just walked off, and I just thought, and then I got up and I went home. And I still remember that, like, it was just that was reality.
And then just life goes on after straight, and then next day you walk the same route.
Walk the same route.
And was that a common occurrence? Did that happen to your friends and that kind of thing at the time?
Yeah, it happened a lot down there.
Yeah.
So they used to call it taxing. So the older guys used to tax younger kids, and they used to be like, and you know, you never used to walk around with anything. So you knew if I've got anything on me, I could, you know, if that kind of situation occurs. So you would never have anything of any value on you when you were just wandering around. That wasn't the case. So I suppose you adapted to that.
Yeah.
That situation.
It's almost like the exact opposite of the way a lot of people act now, isn't it? Where everything's on show. You got, you know, your iPhone 10, you got a nice watch, you got your look at my sister when she goes out or something. She'll have like a Gucci handbag or something.
Yeah,
like that,
that's right.
It's almost the complete opposite of what you're talking about.
But the reality hasn't changed. And the reality is that there are people out there in society that have less, and there's people out there in society that have more. And the vast majority of those people accept their sort of fate, if you like. You know, that's the hand you've been dealt. But then there's a small proportion that think, I'm not going to work my way out of this. I'm going to steal my way out of this. So robbery is still a massive problem.
Happens quite a bit in Headingley, I've heard, like with students at the moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going more into the work side of things now, but street robbery, knife point street robbery is like going through the roof.
Really?
Yeah. Because of what you've just said. There's a load of people out there that live the Instagram lifestyle. You know, I'm going to wear my flash watch and I'm going to spend all my money, every penny I've got, I'm going to go and buy this accessory. And then there's someone else out there that thinks, you know what, I'm just going to take it from you. And I'm going to put a knife to your chest. I'm going to scare the shit out of you. I'm going to take it. That's it. And you see people, we investigate them. So at work, that's what I work on. I work on a street offences team. We deal with burglary, robbery, drug dealing. Street type offences, people, and it's crazy. It's crazy that,
Seems like it might be a tough one to kind of catch those people, I guess, and not leaving much of a trace. If you see me for a few seconds, and I'm got your things and I'm gone.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You got to catch a break. When you do catch a break, you got to hope. I mean, ultimately, these guys aren't the smartest guys in the world. Yeah. That's the first thing. They're not very smart. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because for a risk to reward ratio, it's poor. You might get someone's iPhone X. It's locked. You ain't gonna be able to sell it. You ain't gonna be able to do anything with it because the majority of these phones have some kind of PIN or security device, and they can be. Then you inform your service provider and the IMEI number, and they kill it.
Yeah. Right.
So you've got nothing for it.
Yeah.
You might get a little bit of something, but risk. You're looking at potentially double-figure prison sentences. I mean, a lot of them are kids. A lot of them are young. They're young. They're 16, 17. They think they can get away with it. They think they won't really get in very much trouble. And they don't really understand the consequences of what they're doing. They think it's just a good way of getting stuff.
Right.
I think they ultimately they just don't think it through. But it's, it can be dangerous.
How much do the police deal in? Have you heard the saying, prevention is better than cure?
Yeah.
And I know, there's obviously, when you imagine what the police do, you all see the front end of it, or the reaction side, when you see the police car fly down with sirens on and that kind of thing. Yeah. Do you ever work much in preventative stuff?
So that's not the police's job. So you have the probation service, you have youth offending service, you have prison service. Post. So we ultimately deal with people up to the point at which they're sentenced. We don't deal with people post sentence. There's other agencies for that. Yeah. We partner work with them, but they
do that kind
of thing.
Okay.
There are efforts within the police to do that more with youngsters. With schools, so try not to criminalise people, deal with things at school level, because these kind of things happen in school: assault, robbery, sexual assault, all of these offences which occur as adults in society occur in school. You think, you've got kids in there doing all sorts, but the idea is you deal with it in a school. Sort of, you realise these are kids. They're in school. They're doing whatever they're doing. We used to have a schoolboy fight. This fights happen. People are puffing their chests out and what have you, and that kind of thing happens. So it's important that gets dealt with as children in school.
Yeah.
And not criminalised. But outside of the school environment, we haven't got the resources, and it's someone else's job, really.
Yeah. So how do you measure success when you're doing these type of things? Because I imagine it's something that you can't stop. If it's been going on since before you were even a kid, and then it still goes on today. How do you measure when you've been successful? Do you find that once you've caught one individual and he's gone through the whole process, is that a success to you, or is that just another?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, our success is measured on conviction. So, not to get too I don't want to go down the corporate route for the police, but ultimately, the police is about the victim, isn't it? It's the victim of the crime, and what, how do we best get some kind of justice for that victim? Because ultimately there are people that live criminal lifestyles. That's what they choose to do. They choose to live a criminal lifestyle. And if you choose to live a criminal lifestyle, chances are you're going to end up in prison. That's just the nature of the beast. Yeah. You're going to have rivals. They don't deal with, it's not like business rivals where you're going to, go up against each other in the boardroom. It's, these are criminal rivals, and they'll shoot each other, and they'll stab each other, and they will burn each other's cars and houses, and that's how criminals, they behave. They have their own world which they live in, their own set of rules by which they behave. And ultimately the police's job is to try and protect the vast majority of society from those people. And the way you do that is when you identify them, you put them in prison. And and you isolate them from society because they've chosen to live a life a certain way. There's very little. The vast majority of people in prison, the vast majority of men in prison, live that kind of criminal lifestyle. So that's a choice they make.
Is there anything you struggle with your police work? Like, now it's becoming like more and more, acceptable for people to be smoking like marijuana and that kind of thing. It's been legalized in the States, and you have to imagine maybe in the next 10 or so years that it might get legalized here.
Even quicker than that. I'd say even faster than that. Yeah, so marijuana is a difficult one because it's seesawed even in my service. So it used to be cannabis was class B, cannabis oil was class A, and it was illegal. And that was what, when I first started in the police, there was a lot of weed around, but it wasn't as much as there is now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So now it's just grown in every other empty house. It's just full of like weed being grown.
Do you think that's like maybe because the internet and stuff like that, people kind of can get access to it better?
Yeah, I think, and also there's it's not necessarily the internet. You've got the hydroponics kind of industry. Right. I'm going to grow tomatoes. Yeah. That big business of growing tomatoes. So you have those, but people know how to do it. It's a relative. So when it comes to drugs are like when you talk to risk to reward. Well, robbery's a no-brainer. Robbery's stupid. Well, drugs is pretty smart. Massive reward, relatively low risk.
Right.
When you start looking at the margins involved in drug dealing, it's crazy. It is unbelievable. So, give you an example. Class A heroin. So it's all produced in Afghanistan. 90% of it is produced in Afghanistan. It's smuggled via the traditional route was that it used to come through Iran into Turkey through Europe into Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam across into the UK. That was the traditional route. Now it just basically comes into Pakistan and straight through into Bradford and Birmingham and London, straight through the Pakistani routes. People just bring it in.
Well, just carry it. Yeah, just carry it. Yeah,
there's no checks. Hardly anyone gets stopped. They don't have the facility to mandate it. They don't have there's not the resources. Whatever, people just carry it in. They mail it in. The vast majority of drugs are mailed, to be honest, through the Royal Mail system. So, let's say 1 kilogram of heroin. Pure heroin, bought in Islamabad or Karachi in Pakistan, once it's there, is, let's say, £1,000, let's say.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry, £10,000. This is £10,000 for a kilogram. And then you've got to get it over here. So, let's say it's cost you 15 grand to get your 1 kilogram of pure pure heroin into the UK. And then what you do is you bash it. So nobody can take 100% heroin. So what you do is you get pharmaceutical grade paracetamol. So what you do is you bash drugs with something that mimics the effect of the drug. So heroin is a sedative, essentially, like morphine, dimorphine. Yeah. So it's a sedative. Essentially, it puts you out. It's a downer. So you get something which mimics that. So pharmaceutical grade paracetamol is good. So you get some pharmaceutical grade paracetamol. You get 2 kilograms of that, and you bash. So your 1 kilogram is now 3 kilograms at about 33%, which is typical sort of street value, decent stuff. So you've got 3 kilograms of gear, of street heroin, and you wrap that up into 10-pound bags, each one being 0.2 of a gram. So it's £50 a gram. If you say you've got 3 kilograms, that's 3,000 grams at £50 a gram.
That's a lot of money.
That's 150 grand.
Right.
For your 10,000, 15, 20,000 pound investment.
Yeah. And then
that's serious reward to risk ratio.
Right.
So,
and what is the risk of it? Like what's...
Well, the risk is being shot by other drug dealers.
Okay.
The risk is, being you get drugs taxings, you get kidnappings, you get, this is the criminal world. So if at some point you're going to get noticed and someone's going to want what you've got. So you might be a higher level guy. You might just be an importer. If you're just an importer, you're not importing 1 kilogram at a time. We've done jobs with the National Crime Agency and what have you, where you're getting back 20, 30, 40 kilograms of heroin, of pure heroin, that's being shipped in. That's a significant. You've got to have the funds to buy that, but you've got to. That's massive money. It's millions and millions. And the way, as I said earlier on, you've got something and I want that, and I'm just going to take it. Well, that's how the criminal world works. So, the shootings you hear about, vast majority of the kidnappings, vast majority of them. That organised criminality is all around drugs.
How prevalent is this?
There's more drugs on the streets than there are people or anything. There is so much. Because you got to remember, there's big reward in it. Yeah, and there's big demand. So I read an article the other day that says Europe is the cocaine. England is the cocaine capital of Europe now. So that's heroin. Then you've got cocaine. So cocaine comes in from Colombia. Very similar. You bash it. You bash your cocaine with lidocaine or benzocaine or something like that, and you can bash it with these legal highs now. You get Progaine and Procaine and all of these that were legal substances. Yeah. They're now all illegal, but you bash that up into, and then you sell that for. So I think street cocaine is about £40 a gram, and crack. So what they do with because I do quite a lot of work on drugs and quite like to research drugs. So the way you take the coca plant and you turn it into cocaine, that's something called cocaine hydrochloride. It's petrol and acid and stuff like that. And so it's called cocaine hydrochloride. But so crack cocaine is pure cocaine. So You take the cocaine hydrochloride and they either wash it with what's called an ammonia mix, or they wash it with sodium bicarbonate, I think it is, and and you cook it and you reduce it back down into pure cocaine. And crack is like horrendous stuff. It's not physically addictive, it's psychologically addictive. So heroin is physically addictive, crack is psychologically addictive. And what you will find is that, crack is like, I don't know, street value of crack is probably more, it's probably, a little rock costs you, it might be about, let's say that's 50 £50 a gram as well. Might be more. And what your addict will do is they will smoke the rock, which gives them this massive high, and then they will take the heroin to take the edge off the crack, and it will give them a low, and it will sedate them. So most addicts are on crack and heroin.
Right.
So they're taking both.
Yeah.
So if you're supplying, and most drug dealers supply both crack and heroin, because that's the way that they take it as the two.
Yeah.
So you supply both, and someone might say they'll have one of each. So they'll give someone a rock, and you'll give them some heroin, and they'll take the rock, and then they'll take the heroin, and they'll boom. So there might be an average street deal of let's say £20. Yeah, you're gonna say, well, that one deal is £20. They make hundreds of deals a day. So I've lost track of where we were going to go. We said
that's right. I was looking how prevalent it is, but but it sounds like are there a lot of these deals going on. Is it something that you guys chase down quite a bit?
There's not. So the government produce a police. So the Home Office, the government produce a document. They're like policing objectives, and that's fed down to every police force. And every police force then takes the Home Office, the Home Secretary, the government's objectives, and then they put those down along with their local community objectives. So the objectives are like they're like big, aren't they? They're like reducing counter-terrorism. So the main strategies at the minute, the main things for the police, safeguarding. So you hear massive amounts of things about, child safeguarding, adult safeguarding, things like child sexual exploitation, human trafficking, all of these things, all these new kind of things that have come about. They're the big objectives of the police. And then you've got burglaries always up there, reducing burglary.
Yeah.
Reducing serious organised criminality around firearms and the use of firearms, that's always on there. Street drug dealing ain't on there. It ain't on there. So, street drug dealing, and with the decline in the numbers of police officers over the last 8 years since austerity. So the austerity that's cutting. You're talking about 20. Most police forces have reduced their staff by about 25%.
Oh really?
Yeah, massive cuts, and rejigged everything. Drugs teams have disappeared. So street drug dealing is now easier than ever because they ain't the cops to catch them.
Yeah.
And there ain't the political will to catch them either because it's not on the policing plan.
I guess if you'd asked me before you talked about a bit about the the criminal side of like when I asked you what the risks were with drug dealing type of thing, and you said about getting shot and that kind of thing. I guess if you'd asked me, I probably would have thought drug dealing is a bit like a victimless crime in the sense that the person's chosen to go out and do heroin, cocaine, no matter the detriments to their own body. They've gone out to do it. But I guess I'm quite naive to it. Would you say Is it a victimless crime in your eyes? I don't know.
So I split drug dealing down into two types, or drugs in general into two types. So you've got the like social drugs, don't they? They call them, what do they call them? So, like social, like cocaine, things like ketamine, things like
party type drugs.
Yeah, party drugs, ecstasy. Now, ultimately, potentially, you could say they are maybe victimless, because, people take them on the weekend or they take them wherever, and they're not, very few people are just slave to those. What happens is then you take the, and cannabis is you'd put in that as well. And then you take crack, heroin, amphetamine. There are people out there who are completely dependent on crack, heroin, and amphetamine, and they spend their entire days wandering around trying to work money because they become physically and mentally addicted to those. Like heroin, most heroin addicts, heroin is a horrendous drug, and when you see what it does to people in withdrawal, if you're addicted to heroin and you start to withdraw, your body is in excruciating physical pain.
It can kill you, right? I think
it can do. Yeah. It can do, but cramps, cold sweats, pain in your joints, pain, the inability to function, shakes. They call them, they rattle. They call it rattling. I'm rattling because just the entire body is shutting down because it needs this drug. So,
have you seen people in that state?
Oh yeah, when they're in custody.
Oh really?
When they're in custody, they're in a horrendous state because they've come off. We've caught them, and 6, 8, 10, 12 hours later, they're rattling and they're in a bad state, and they need their hit, and they haven't got it.
Yeah.
And we give them substitute, so they do get some opiate medication. It's not anywhere. It's not heroin. They might get diazepam.
Right.
I've taken diazepam for a bad back.
Yeah.
You don't get smashed off your face off it, but that's what their body's used to. So it takes the edge off it, but it doesn't really. They're still poorly. Yeah. They still feel poorly. And they're not victimless crimes, because what those guys do is they commit crime to fund that habit.
Yeah.
So they're out burgling, robbing, they're doing street robberies. There was a spate in Bramley Shopping Centre last couple of weeks, there was a spate of knife point robberies. About midnight, people walking home, some in an inebriated state, some getting off the last bus, robbed at knife point. I know who did it. We know who did it, and he was funding his drug habit. That's serious. Going into people's houses, burgling the houses, trying the door handles, breaking into cars, breaking into shoplifting, all of these things, just to fund, to sell, to feed the drug addict. Now, that's not victimless crime.
Yeah.
There are significant victims to those crimes. People feel unsafe in their own homes. They feel unsafe to walk the streets because there's these people out there that will do anything to get their fix because they physically can't function without it. So, yeah.
Do you have much thought on psychedelic drug use? Things like DMT and psilocybin and.
Yeah, so when I was younger at university, I made a few trips to Amsterdam, tried a few things, and they were fun, I suppose. Is it psilocybin that's in mushrooms? Isn't it? Yeah. And yeah, ultimately, as long as you're in a safe environment for those, they are what they are. LSD and the likes of those, they're not going to cause you. They don't cause a societal issue, really.
Right. Do you kind of put those in the same category as like marijuana and ecstasy and those kind of things.
But in terms of the suppliers of those, so I personally distinguish, and I may be not in the majority of the police in this, I distinguish between the user and the supplier. So the suppliers of those drugs will supply all the other drugs as well.
Right.
So, if you're getting in huge amounts of LSD and you're cutting up those tabs and you're supplying ecstasy and LSD at festivals, you'll most likely be shipping huge amounts of cocaine into those festivals. You're shipping, because let's get it right. Festivals, it's almost like a green light, isn't it? Do as much drugs as you want. There's drugs bins. The police don't go in there. There's drugs bins. Come and test what you've got. We'll test it for you to make sure it's safe.
Right.
It's almost like they're trying to make it as safe as possible for those people to use those drugs. Because a lot of people go there to do that, but there's got to be a supply going in there. So that's what they target the suppliers.
Right.
And we target the suppliers. And the suppliers get absolutely hammered at court. They get absolutely hammered at court. First time drug supply festival, you're going to prison.
Really?
And drug dealers go to prison.
Yeah. How long is it usually for drug sentences, like for supplying?
So street dealing. So what you have is you have sentencing guidelines. So you have a maximum sentence. Possession with intent to. There's dozens of different drugs offences, but let's say possession with intent to supply. That is a most common supply offence. So you've got some drugs and you're dealing. Possession with intent to supply. We can prove that. Street dealing, sentencing guidelines, 4 to 7 years,
really?
Depending on so you'll generally get 3 or 4 years, and you'll get sentenced for 3 or 4 years if you're level up. So if you've got a couple of runners, you might look to get towards the top end of that, 6 to 7 years. If you're then above that, you look to 10 years. Right. If you're caught with a significant volume of drugs that you couldn't possibly supply yourself, and they're in kind of the so there was a guy recently we found, did a search on a house, found probably 200,000 to 300,000 pounds worth of cocaine in his house. Yeah. Number of kilos of cocaine, all very pure, high quality. Clearly, would be bashing it and would be selling it the way it was bagged up, the way it was. He got 10 years. Right. That's a higher level. Yeah. Street dealers, 3 years, 4 years, depending on what you've got.
I know you're not like a prison officer, but do you know much about what goes on in the prisons? Like, do you have much touch on that?
There's more drugs in prison than there is out on the streets.
Really?
Yeah, it just gets fished in, flown in, carried in. There's a theory. There's a theory that, you want to get drugs into prison, you meet the right guard.
All right.
You want to get mobile phones into prison, you meet the right guard. There's always sort of big money in prison, big money out of prison. People will do what they need to do.
When these people kind of finish their sentences, do they a lot of times go back to what they were doing?
Oh,
or?
Yeah.
They
Vast
do?
Majority of people.
Yeah.
Because that's the lifestyle they've chosen to live.
Right. Do you feel for them like... Do you feel like imprisonment's the right thing to do, or do you think there's more like...
For drug dealers?
For drug dealers, and then maybe if there's anything else you wanted to touch on, if there's any like...
So, yeah, I mean, you've got to break down, haven't you? So, the way the prison system works, from my understanding of it, you've got up to 16, or up to 18, they're in what's called secure accommodation. It's not really a prison. It's more of a secure, and they have to go to school every day. And a bit like the law says, you've got to be in full-time education up until you're 18, unless you've got a job or a training program or whatever it is. So they're in those. And then between 18 and 24, they're in these like youth offending institutes where there's training courses and development and all of these things that they can try and do to come out as better members of society. technician courses, mechanics courses, electronics, plaster, whatever it is, you know, get a trade, learn a trade while you're in prison. And then there's the 24 and above, I think from 21 you can be sent to an adult prison, which is just general prison population. And there is still a little bit there, but they're not young anymore, so what the chances are that, you know, depending on what you've done, prisoners have their own rules as well. You know, depending on what you've done, you know, it's acceptable or unacceptable by their standards. You know, sex offenders, big no-no. Child offences, big no-no. Elderly offences, big no-no. Because they've all got mothers and kids and families, and, you know, how dare you do that? Whereas they're drug dealing and they're just general beating the shit out of people and whatever else it is that they do, robbing and burgling, perfectly fine. But your offence, that's bang out of order. So then they're separated from the rest of the prison population for their own safety. And then they have their own, you know, that whole same macho criminal lifestyle that exists outside. They're just in a more concentrated environment in that same place.
Yeah. Do you think if
they become better criminals when they come out because they've learnt a few things from their mates?
Right. Yeah. If you were to set your own like social policy of, you know, Khalil, for everything that your job kind of entails, what changes would you make, and would you make how would you make things maybe more streamlined for yourself, or what do you think would be the right thing to do?
I used to think, you know, we could get rid of this, we could get rid of this, we could get rid of this. But now I've realised everything has a purpose and a job. The one thing I would do is I would invest. We need to invest in our police service. You do anything on the cheap, it's going to be cheap. You're not going to get the results. So what it requires is an investment in policing. But I don't know, man. Ultimately, we are a legal service. We deprive people of their liberty, and we put in place, we start the ball rolling for them to go through the legal process for which they can either be there, for which they can be tried at court to establish whether they're guilty of an offence or not. So you can't get away from that. We are illegal. So the paperwork side of things you've got to do. From an investigator, so now I mean I've done operational roles in policing. I've done probably the 14 years I've been a police officer. 9, probably about 11 or 12 of those have been in an operational role, a front line uniform operational role. Probably 3 and a half of those have been in an investigative role. And in the investigative role, it's amazing how everything is so balanced on the side of the defendant, the suspect.
Oh, really?
It's crazy. You know, when you look at, there's a piece of legislation called the CPIA, and that basically sets out how we investigate. And CPIA says that it covers what an investigator. So we have to follow all lines of inquiry that lead us either to or away from the suspect. And what the also CPIA says is that you've got to disclose, and it's the disclosure side of things has been massive at the minute, but you can just get swamped and you can lose a case on technicalities of disclosure and stuff like that, which, you know, defences just go crazy on. So the technical aspects of, so, you know, there's a lot of work has to go into what people don't see, the background stuff, that we make sure we get things right. And that costs So there's a lot of money involved, and there's a lot of people involved in the background, I suppose, which takes away slightly from the frontline services, and we spend a lot of time doing that, but ultimately that's the law, and we've got to abide by the law and the legal sort of procedures that are in place and the obligations upon us. So if I was going to do anything, I'd maybe I don't know, change the law slightly to adjust those, but you know, it is what it is. So
you feel like everything's got its place.
Yeah, things have their place. Yeah.
I think in Portugal they've got that thing where, for drugs anyway, where they've kind of legalized everything, but it's all regulated. So there's, you know, places where addicts can go to get a fix with like clean needles and everything like that. But at the same time, they have to, you know, speak to someone about, you know, rehabilitation and kind of that kind of thing.
I think, so from a drugs point of view, I don't know. There is a lot. There is an idea. There is a school of thought that says, if we take it out of the criminal hands, we can control it. But there'll always be a criminal aspect to it. And there will always be a criminal aspect to it, especially those most serious of substances. I mean, there's things that have been invented all the time. So now Breaking Bad, he talks about crystal meth, you know, methamphetamine. What a incredibly destructive substance that is. It's kind of skimmed over in that program, just about, you know, how it doesn't really touch on what it is he's producing. He's producing like potentially the most dangerous substance out there at the moment. You know, meth labs propping up all over the place. I don't think you could ever have a situation where you could have legalized methamphetamine. What that does to your body, what it does to your mind, what it does to you physically, it's crazy. There's no way you could do that. And then you've got these things, you know, there's something called crocodile in Russia. And that just like, it's like some chemical that's been made, and it just ends up eating away. You research a crocodile and you will just see people's limbs that have been eaten away, flesh eaten, just because of the corrosive substances that are in this thing. You've now got, have you heard of fentanyl? Yeah,
is that like the super strong version of heroin, is it?
Yeah, well, it's a super strong version of ketamine. But people talk about ketamine as a horse tranquilizer. Well, fentanyl, I think, is an elephant tranquilizer.
Right.
And it's just, smallest dose will kill you.
Yeah.
People still want to take it. So it's all well and good saying, yeah, we'll legalise this, but there's some shit out there you just can't legalise.
Yeah. You struggle, wouldn't it, I guess, with things like that.
Yeah.
You can move a bit away from drugs, but I was just, a few more things I was wondering about is how much of a lot of what you mentioned today is like quite new to me. And how much of your work do you feel like goes under the radar? Like, and the general public aren't quite aware of maybe, you know, knife crime, you know, on the rise, or...
Yeah, I think a lot of it is... So people like to bury the... not people like to bury the hen, but... what was I watching? I've got to go in about 15 minutes. Just,
no worries,
just
man.
So you know.
Yeah, we'll finish
what was it? Yeah, so I was watching... I can't remember what I was watching, but they talk about people just wanting to, you know, bury the head and just ignore things, you know, and not face up to it. And that's something that we do. All of us do. We just ignore it. We
Yeah.
just say, oh, we don't, what?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. And I think that with crime and organised crime and a lot of crime, we do that. We do that. I think just to kind of maybe put our mind in it that the world is we can't demonize everything. We're in the UK. We are one of the safest countries in the world. But there is this massive you scratch the surface and there is a massive criminal underworld. But we ignore it. I don't think it's hidden. I think people know about it.
Yeah, just kind of goes. It's out of people's minds, I guess, out of sight, out of mind, that kind of thing.
So we deal with that. So in terms of police work, how much of it is hidden? Yeah, there's a lot of it that you don't see, a lot of that background. So my brother said to me yesterday, I was chatting to him when I opened my fast, and I was down at my dad's, and we were sat chatting, and he's like, "Oh, so like now you do investigations? Is it like it is in the TV?" And I says, you send something off. I says, it comes back 6 to 8 weeks later. I says, I says, investigations take months and months and years. I says, in the TV, they're done in 2 days.
Right.
I says, that's not the way it works. I says, so there is that kind of, people are, how long does it take? Well, I remember I've got one trial. He was arrested in December for a series of knife point robberies, and I've been pretty much working on that. And his trial is now in September, and I still hadn't finished the work. It was supposed to be next week, and I still hadn't finished the work. 6 months later, still, as it drips in, produces more work. The more doors you open, the more it becomes. The more avenues you have to explore. The more evidence you need to gather. More and more, and potentially more. An investigation, sometimes you have to say, right, I'm not going to go down that route. I'm not going to go down that route, because otherwise they just get out of control.
It's coming like branches off of branches. And,
it can be. So nobody sees that. Very few people see that. They expect quick results.
Yeah.
They don't know that 6 months, a year later, 18 months, 2 years later, that investigation is still ongoing.
Couple more questions I wanted to ask before we head out of here. But what's the hardest decision you've had to make while you've been a police officer?
I don't know. See, your decisions, whether you like it or not, the frameworks are always in place to make the decision you make. So you will generally, if you're in a bit of a quandary, like you're not quite sure what to do, you can always go back to sort of what is it you're trying to achieve, what is it going to go. You weigh up some pros and cons. You go speak to your supervisor, you speak to your friends and colleagues, and you get kind of an idea of what you want to do. But I don't think there's difficult decisions to make. There's just ultimately, what do I have to do in this situation? Because it's not personal. It's not, ultimately I have a job to do. I go down and do that job. Sometimes you come across people and you come across people that you potentially work with, and you come across people. I suppose the hardest decisions are those against your colleagues. So maybe you see someone you work with do something, and you're like, well, what do I do about that?
Right. Have like
that you may see them do something criminal. You may see them do something which you just think is out of order. You may see someone hasn't done their job properly, which has then then made it impossible for you to do your job properly. That's more than criminal. I've never seen anyone do anything criminal, but you certainly get a position where people just don't do their job. They haven't done their job properly. That means that has a knock-on effect on you. Well, how do you deal with that?
Right.
Do you grass them up? Do you just send them an email and say, look, this is what happened? Do you speak to them in person? And it's quite difficult then that's more difficult than dealing with sort of suspects and defendants and victims.
That that more kind of personal aspect to it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, got a couple more. We'll change it up a bit from the dark and gloomy.
Yeah,
I will end it on a
good.
nice high note. Let's say you had a completely free day. There's no work to be done, and you got the whole day clear.
Okay.
What's a perfect day for you?
A lie-in.
You're lying in. What time are you probably going to get up?
Well, it depends what time I go to bed. But probably, I think, no, not a lie-in. I'm going to change that up. Early morning jiu-jitsu.
Get up.
First thing. Go, get some training done. Some nice breakfast. Maybe nip in to
What's the breakfast?
Breakfast is, I don't know, something like maybe just some poached eggs on toast, or I quite like some avocado chucked in there. I mean, obviously I don't eat pork, so and I like croissants and stuff. So a bit of a mix of maybe some poached eggs on toast, maybe a croissant, some nice black coffee.
Yeah.
Probably nip in to see my mum and dad, spend a little bit of time with them, and then I don't know, man. I'd probably when I do get a free day from time, I like to watch some films.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like to
new stuff, old stuff.
No, new stuff. So a lot of the old stuff I've kind of watched. So there's some films you can watch over and over again, like The Matrix. I've watched that film a dozen times, and I'll never get bored of watching that. But I mean, there's loads of films I still want to see. So I kind of quite like the Marvel Avenger stuff. So there's some of those films I haven't seen yet. I've not seen not seen Black Panther. I've not seen the Infinity War. I've not seen. So there's a few of those. Maybe I might potentially catch up with some of those, or just maybe watch a couple of movies. Just
with the kids, you think? Are they there? Or?
Yeah, well, if the kids are there, they control the telly.
Right.
So if I want, I mean, I don't watch TV. When something's on, everything's recorded because kids control the TV until like 9 o'clock. So, and then sometimes it's late. But if the kids aren't there, man. On a free day, the kids aren't there because
perfect day. Kids are with the mum.
Yeah, if the kids are there, then it's like I'm running around after them. Because ultimately, you do, don't you? When you have kids, you run around after them. You do sacrifice, and no matter how much you don't want to do something, you'll do it. You'll sacrifice your time for them. The kids aren't there, man. That's not the perfect days. Yeah. The free days, aren't we then? But I don't know.
I think maybe just how's your evening going?
Just
go out for dinner with a missus or something.
No, I'd probably get a takeout in between the two movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What's the takeout of choice?
So I had like a day where I recently got like there was a Lebanese place that did some like they did what do you call them again? The Moroccan like clay dishes with the lid on it. What do you call them? It's
I'm not too sure.
It's gonna annoy me now. I don't know, something. So obviously, I'm Asian, Pakistani sort of. So spiced food, nothing bland. I don't like too many spices, but something with a bit of heat in it, something with a bit of taste to it.
Do you have a favourite curry?
Just like my wife makes a mad chicken masala, just like homemade. It's
okay.
And I quite like no, I say my favourite. If I was to pick one, I'd pick like a lamb or mutton with some okra.
Oh yeah. Bindi they call it.
Bindi, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love okra. Mine's a paneer masala. I'm veggie, so I paneer
cool.
instead. Moortown tandoori do some great curries.
Yeah.
Well, they're not. I wouldn't say that they're best or something, but you get a lot of it for the.
Have you been to that Bundabust?
Bundabust, I love Bundabust, and the place next door is really good as well. Thoroughvado.
Yeah.
Let's end it there, Camille.
All right, cool.
Khalil. Camille was my first guest on the podcast.
Okay,
nice one.
Cheers.